And anyways, I get home that day, and I had my suit on and everything, and I got my little briefcase in my bag, and my daughter sees me, and she could tell I'm a little sad. She gives me a little hug. I said, "What's wrong, Dad?" And it's like, "Oh, I remember the company that I was thinking about starting. It's not going to work, babes." And she goes, "But I thought you said never give up." That
Hits different when it comes from your 5-year-old.
Yeah, yeah.
You guys are in for such a treat today. I'm sitting with Mr. Gary Hibbert, who, if I said he was cut from the same cloth as me, it would be an understatement. You're going to find out what I mean by it in this conversation that we're going to have today about all things investing in real estate, being a realtor, maybe being a podcast host, shooting a lot of content, and really just trying to inspire as many people as he possibly can. I was a guest on his podcast not too long ago, and I told him that day, I go, look, once some of these lockdowns and all that stuff gets completed, and we can have people back in studio, you're the first guy that I want in here. We finally got our schedules matched up, so I'm very excited to be sitting with Mr. Gary Hibbert. How you doing, brother?
I am good, man. It is good to see you in person. I'm excited to do this with you. I really am, man. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Look, I when I saw you, come into the office, I was like, I said the same thing to you. I was like, I see you on content all over the place, the Facebooks, the Instagrams. You do some stuff on LinkedIn as well, right?
Yeah,
Like you're doing a lot more there as well. Obviously, your podcast. And when I was saying, I said it in the intro, you truly are, in my opinion, Gary, cut from the same cloth as me, man. And what do I mean by that? That I think you figured something out, right? Like where you have enough now. And it's like, it's almost like you just want to give back to your personal community,
Yep.
the community at large, anybody who watches you on socials, listens to your podcast, and make sure, yes, that we drop the links to Gary's podcast and YouTube and all that kind of stuff. Because if you guys like even a little bit about what I do, you're going to love what my man Gary does, because he's had some amazing guests. And we've also had a lot of crossover in terms of our guests as well. And it's just, look, you might have heard the same guest on my podcast, but Gary asks different questions. It's a different, perspective that he's looking at it from. So make sure that you cross over, subscribe to his podcast, follow him on all the socials. But as I was mentioning, Gary, like, have you kind of figured, like, is that where you're at now in your life? Like, you kind of figured out that you have enough and now it's time to give back?
I think it's always about giving back. I figured it out? I'm figuring it out. I'm continuing to keep trying to see how this all works and how this all unfolds. Life is something that you can design, and I figured this out back in like around 2006.
Okay.
All right, and so my brother had brought The Secret over to me. I don't remember the movie, The Secret.
Yeah. The Bob Proctors and all of them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I finished watching it, and I'm like, what? You can actually just write down what you want. This is how this works. This whole universe thing works like this. And so I said, I got to at least give it a try. I got to at least see if this thing works, this whole whiteboard thing works. And fast forward to where I am today, it works. It really does. But people think that, well, is it just as simple as just writing it down? No, it's not. The one thing that The Secret missed was the action piece, that you actually have to work. You actually have to put things into motion. And so I'll share with you something that really kind of changed my life. And anybody that follows me knows that I love Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn is somebody who is Tony Robbins' mentor, somebody that I looked up to, and really, really influenced who I am today.
Were you listening? Like, were you into Jim Rohn even before, like, he passed and stuff?
Yes.
Like, okay,
that is, man, I wish I had a chance to meet
see
this
live?
guy.
Yeah,
to see him live. And so he had this segment in one of his podcasts where he talks about how to design a life. Mm-hmm. And he goes, make a list of 100 things that you want in your life. What do you want to do? Who do you want to be? What do you want to see? Where do you want to go? It doesn't matter. And just write down 100 things. It could be as small as paying off a $1,000 credit card, and it could be as large as a mansion or a yacht or whatever it may be. Write it down. Most people can't get 100 things. maybe 50 if they're lucky, okay? Then he says, write a 1, 3, a 5, or a 10 beside each one of those goals.
Okay.
And what that represents is how long realistically can you actually achieve them? It's going to take you 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, or 10 years. When you do that, everything that has a 3, 5, or a 10 beside it, put in a drawer. It's too daunting of a task. Don't even worry about it. And see, sometimes people put these big vision boards up and then they get so overwhelmed because there's such a big task to achieve it. But if you just focus on the 1 year goals, that's a little bit more achievable.
For sure.
And then I also learned about SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time. I've seen it on one of your
100%.
Instagram posts.
100%.
And that's one of the reasons how we actually came with Smart Home Choice, which is our real estate investment company.
Interesting.
And so people say, well, it doesn't
I
sound
didn't
like
know the
real
tie there.
right.
Oh,
People
cool.
are
I
like,
like
well,
that.
hold on a second. This is not a real estate investment company. I don't understand it. Because to me, SMART goals are way important than just real estate investing. Real estate investing is just a vehicle. And so once I kind of tied that all together, that is how I figured out this is how you design a life.
If you can remember, I'm very curious now.
Yeah.
What was your 1 year goals?
Ooh, 1 year goals. I had one of them to pay off $1,000 credit card.
See, something just as
Just
small
as
as that.
small as that, but it was still very difficult because I hadn't gotten that mindset yet. I was still kind of working towards it. One investment property was on there.
Did you own one at that time?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't.
I love
didn't
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I started writing these things down. And at the end of the year, 70, 80% of the things that I'd written down were attained. And so I remember hearing something as well too, that if you just write down what you want, and if you're able to attain even 67% of it, you are 95% ahead of most people.
And look, I mean, we've all heard this saying, but these things are true. Shoot for the moon, and if you land on the stars, I think you're gonna be okay with that. But what you learned along that process, because we've always, and I know you can attest to this, we've been there before. You hit a goal.
Yep.
You're very excited, and you might pop some champagne, go get a nice steak dinner that night, and live off that euphoria for a couple of days.
Right.
But if you don't have something else set up afterwards, it starts to wane. Like you need another goal set up, right? Like
Right.
if I always talk about, and I heard this from actually Tony Robbins. So I wasn't a huge, I just never came across Jim Rohn.
Yeah.
But Tony, I did. I've seen him live, and I mean, there's tons of
Yeah.
books of his around here. And he always, said that, imagine being an astronaut, right? Like your whole life, you wanna get to the moon. You get there, and what's next? Like if
Right.
you didn't actually enjoy the journey, and it was always about the destination, you come to learn really quickly that you can make all the money in the world, but it's that journey. Who did you inspire along the way? Who did you uplift along the way? Who did you become as a person? Like, take away for me now, take away, 54 agents that I have. Take away, I tell other real estate agents all the time, I'll give you my list of clients, all of them. Take them all away. It's okay.
Right.
Either because I think that they're going to say, if you're not working with Jazz, I think that's how strong the relationship is. They're going to say, if you're not working with Jazz, we don't want to work with you. But even if they all left, the person I've become in the last 4, 5, 6 years, you can't take that away from me.
Yeah.
I'll be able to replicate this, right?
Exactly.
So I love how you spoke about that 1 year goal. I mean, massive sign above my head right now says ready, fire, aim. Because
Yeah.
a lot of people get stuck when they talk about the 3 to 5 to 7, 10-year goals. They get stuck in that paralysis by analysis, right?
Right.
Like they never actually pull the trigger.
Exactly. And you know what? And I'll add to that as well too, because people just put down on the whiteboard, but then hold on a second. Now, how do you actually get to that? And you also said something that was really important as well too, is that, and Jim Rohn said this: make the goal to become a millionaire, not for the money, but for the person you will become to achieve it. And it took a little while for me to figure that out, because I always thought it was about being a millionaire, but it's not. Because the person that you become to achieve it is the problem solving, it's the things that you're learning along the way. It's the mistakes that you make. Because you learn more in those mistakes. You learn more when you fall down. Like, can you actually run across a football field with no linebackers and spike the football and call a touchdown? No.
Yeah.
You got to get tackled. You got to get hit. You
And you got to get back
knocked
up
down.
again.
Yes,
Right?
that is life, and people want life to sometimes just be easy, and it's not supposed to be that way. You're supposed to go through these challenges and these uphill battles. That's how life is. But now to tie in the whiteboard. Okay, how do you achieve those goals that are on that whiteboard? And so the next step that I kind of worked towards was now having the agenda, having that book in front of me while I'm sitting down at my computer desk. And so you have the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I had a really difficult time with putting stuff in there. So what I did was I said, okay, instead of doing it that way, why don't I do to do, right? So these are things I just have to do, maybe get back to emails, whatever it may be for that week. Personal stuff, things that my wife wants me to do, things that I need to get
The
done
honey-do
around the
list.
house,
The honey-do
all
list.
that other stuff, right? Get the sticker for the car, the license, whatever it may be. Then the next column was important. Things that were closely tied to what was on my whiteboard. So now I had to get these things done this week. These other things, I'll get to them, but this is what's important in the important column because they're strictly tied to what's in the whiteboard. And then I just had another one called notes or whatever. You know, I'm talking to somebody, write down some notes. And by doing that, at the end of the week, there's only 4 things that you can do with anything. Either you do it, meaning you check it off, you put a check mark, you highlight it. Highlighting it or checking it off is like getting a like on Facebook or getting a like on Instagram,
It's
right?
that dopamine hit, right?
There you
It's
go.
that dopamine hit.
Exactly. So you do it, you defer it, meaning that, okay, I didn't get it done this week, still important, so I'll bring it to the next week. You delegate it, meaning I don't have time to do this, but there's somebody else that can do this for me, or you delete it. It wasn't really all that important anyways.
Right.
And
Maybe it was
but-
when you wrote it down, but now it's not that
Right.
important.
And so then now, when you go through 6 months, you can take a look back and say, holy shit, no, I was doing things. I was getting closer to my goal. And you take a look at your whiteboard and you're starting to see things getting checked off. This is how you start to design that life. And what's even more important, what's on that whiteboard, if somebody now brings something to you, and you say, well, hold on a second, it's not tied to what I said I wanted, it's also just important to say no to something. As opposed to saying yes to everything, and now you're getting lost,
We've been
and
there
you're doing everything.
I
right?
mean, look, you see something on one of my whiteboards here. It says "Road to 1,000," and
Yeah.
that road to 1,000 is to get to 1,000 clients for my media company.
Nice.
Okay,
That's
we
good.
wrote
That's
that up there. I'm gonna say 4 months ago.
Yeah.
4 months ago, I said, okay, this is exactly what the target is. The media company started about 7 months ago, but we were flirting with a couple of ideas.
Yep.
I wasn't really, not that I wasn't taking it seriously, I just didn't know what the target was. I
Right.
didn't know yet.
Yep.
Very busy with the real estate side of things, but then I finally put this up, like I said, about, call it five months ago.
Yep.
Now when somebody comes into this room and I get a lot of opportunities on my desk, like, hey, do you want to invest in this? As from a real estate perspective, do you want to invest in a business? My business partner in my real estate company, he's out and about. His job is business development. So he's bringing a lot of stuff to the table, doing an amazing job at it.
Right.
But I always look to that.
Right.
And it's like, how much time is this new opportunity going to take away from that? So what you're saying, man, I mean, it resonates with me so much because I get to see this, I don't know, I probably look at it 17 to 18 times a day.
Yeah, and
Because
that's
I'm
good.
here all day, right? But it really has it been imprinted in my brain that I know that if someone brings me an opportunity that is going to take away from that, I'm just not going to do it.
Right.
I'm
yeah.
just not going to do it.
And listen, you know, and the other thing as well too, and that's a lofty goal, right? But if your dreams are not scaring you, then they're not big enough.
100%.
Right.
It's so true. You know what? I love what you said about going back to your calendar and seeing what you've done, right? Because I talk to my team a lot about the fact that, like, you know, if you're here right now and you're trying to get to, call it a, you know, whatever goal, you want to get to 1,000
Yeah.
clients. Sometimes this could be daunting, as you mentioned. What I like to do is remind myself where I was 6 months ago, where I
Right.
was a year ago, where I was, to your point, you do it with your book. I kind of just visualize like, hey, at this point a year ago, I also thought where I am right now would be daunting, but I got through it. Right? I think we just forget as people like what we've been through. You talked about failures. Like, is there one or two that comes to your head right now, Gary, that like somebody else could possibly learn from? Like a failure that you just had.
Yeah. Yeah. So look, but I've had lots. Here's one I think that might help people. Is I remember when I was starting Smart Home Choice. I'm going to tie a whole story into this because I think it's really important for people to hear this. We wanted Smart Home Choice, wrote it all down, trying to figure it all out, like because in 2008 was when they had the crash in the U.S. and it was starting to creep up here into Canada. People were getting a little bit nervous, and so I went into work on Monday. And one of my coworkers got called into the office, comes out, I'm like, oh shit, he just got let go. And all day long, okay, all day long they're letting people go. And I'm like, I just bought my dream home. I cannot lose my job. Because if I lose my job, I'm going to lose this home. And I got 2 young kids at home. 4 o'clock rolls around, manager comes out. He goes, all right, whoever's left, you're safe, you're good. And I remember driving home like, I never want to feel like somebody is ever in control of my financial freedom or future ever again. That's in 2008. And so come 2010 now, we're working towards starting Smart Home Choice. And my daughter at the time was maybe 5, somewhere around there. And we had gone out, me and my partner, went to different lawyers, trying to figure out how we're going to start this company. And every single lawyer said, no, this idea is not going to work. It was the way that we had structured it. And anyways, I get home that day, and I had my suit on and everything, and I got my little briefcase in my bag, and my daughter sees me, and she could tell I'm a little sad, she gives me a little hug. I said, what's wrong, Dad? And it's like, oh, I remember the company that I was thinking about starting. It's not going to work, babes. And she goes, but I thought you said never give up. That
It's different when it comes from your 5-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah. That next day, woke up, just kind of changed things around a bit, and went out, found this lawyer, and he's like, yeah, I can do this. We can, it's a little daunting, but we can figure this thing out. We'll figure it out. We just got to change things up a bit. And 2010 is when we started Smart Home Choice. Now, here's something else I think is really important. This is, I think, for parents and for kids that are thinking about starting a business. When you start a business, it takes a lot of time away from your kids. It takes time from the family. And so I went out and bought this Bristol board, okay, from the dollar store. I think it's $2 store.
Yeah. I talk about that. The dollar store should not be called the dollar store. It's the $2 store, yes.
Yeah. So anyways, bought this Bristol board, brought it home, had the kids sit down on the floor with me and my wife, and we're starting this company called Smart Home Choice. What do you guys want from it? I didn't care what they said. I just wanted them to feel like they were a part of the business. Like, Dad, we want a mascot. Beautiful mascot.
Kids, I freaking love
like
it.
what else do you want? What else do you want? We want like $1 million every month. I ain't heard of $1 million. So just do it every month.
Yeah.
No problem. $1 million every month. I didn't care. How much months vacation do you guys want? 2 months. 2 months. How about 4? 4 months. Yeah, let's do 4 months. And so we were doing all of these little circles off of the central point of Smart Home Choice.
Yeah, I love that.
And when we were building the business, we're like, you know what? Can we actually take 4 months off? And so in December, in January, in July, in August, we take 4 months off now out of the year. And we shut the company down. We took the kids to Wonderland, and we just enjoyed life. Yes, we work a little bit, but we stretch it to maybe a 4-hour work week.
Yeah.
And that is what we did. We built a business around the ideas of what the kids wanted.
I love that. I mean, I've been saying a lot of that, and it's the universe doing its thing. That you come into my world today, and you're talking about the same type of stuff. I think for the last 6 months, I've been telling real estate agents, my team, people, anybody who'd listen, that you can design your business around your life. You don't need to design your life around your business, right? And for me, that meant, you know what? I'm very, very comfortable in a hoodie. I'm very comfortable in a t-shirt. I'm very comfortable in runners and jeans. I'm also comfortable in my own skin to speak from the fact that, look, I just barely passed high school. And then I didn't go after to any other school. No university, no college. I just... I'm born and raised in Rexdale, a place where some people hide that they're from there. I did. Not that I lied about it, I just never really brought it up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I used to use the word Etobicoke.
Right.
Maybe sometimes even say that I went to school in South Etobicoke because I was ashamed. I didn't know how people were gonna look at me and what they were gonna think of me. And then the second I let all that go and started to tell people that, look, I'm from Rexdale, the world started to open up for me. I mean, I started to build my own little tribe, my own little community. And I said, you and I were talking like for 37 seconds before we went on, that I decided 4 years ago, I'm not going to leave this office. I wanna grow a culture of people that are inspired to give back, to do more, have a lot of fun. There's not a lot of people who come into our world that have a negative mindset and actually stick around with us. They might last you for maybe 30 days, 45 days, but they get filtered out really quickly because I think they just think we're really crazy because we're always upbeat and positive. And for me to do that, I knew I couldn't leave the office.
Right.
I had to be here. How could I actually still do real estate deals, work with investors? And I just figured it out. It just worked itself out. We ran into a lot of obstacles. We did add friction at times to get in touch with me, to get in touch with the team, but it all kind of worked itself out. And so, again, man, I said it at the start that we're really cut from the same cloth, and these are the reasons why I think we are, because you made this declaration, I'll call it, with your family that you're going to have the vacations that your kids wanted, and you're going to be able to build the income that you feel like is enough for you guys, or whatever that number is. Who cares whatever the number is? And you did do it. So just kudos to you, because again, you're an inspiration to a lot of people. I want to speak about Smart Home Choice Realty. What is that?
Yeah.
Is it break that down? Because then I really want to get into the mindset of real estate investors. A lot of my viewers and listeners, they're kind of a mixture of business people, real estate agents, entrepreneurs, and I think we gave them a lot of value there. And to get more of that, go check out my boy Gary on all his platforms. But I really want to speak about the other half of people that are watching and listening right now who are investors. And they're all about highest returns and types of properties. Let's give them that stuff as well. But I really want to start with Smart Home Choice Realty. I kind of know how it started now, but what is it?
Yeah. So Smart Home Choice is a real estate education company. It's a one-stop shop.
Okay.
What we did was we started investing in real estate back in 2008.
You say you and your...
Me and my wife.
Got it.
Okay. So from 2008 to 2010, we had purchased 2 investment properties, doing the BRRRR strategy. We had no idea what the BRRRR strategy was,
Right.
but we were doing it back then.
Okay. The kids made it cool now with the word "burr." You were doing that stuff way back then.
Way
you know what I
back
mean?
then.
They needed to coin it. You know what I mean? My boy Yas, my 20-year-old cinematographer, he's behind the lens, obviously, for anybody who's watching and listening. I mean, they put acronyms on everything, right? So they needed to make it cool. But go on.
So anyways, now, on the second property, made a lot of mistakes, put a bad tenant into the property, didn't understand the whole landlord and tenant board. And then I took a step back and I was like, this is what people because I was working at TD Bank as well too at the time. And this is what people were telling me why you shouldn't invest in real estate, because you're going to have headaches. You're going to have tenants that are going to cause problems or not pay, or you can't evict them, during the wintertime, or if they have kids, and all these different myths. And I'm like, man, you know what? This is not going to work. Maybe I should just stop. And so I went online, did a Google search, a better way to invest in real estate, and came across rent to own. I was like, man, this is an interesting concept. And so when we started Smart Home Choice was more focused on rent to own. Just focused on rent to own, putting in good tenants into your property and giving them an option to purchase that property 3 years down the run, right? And go too heavily into rent to own. And so we created this one-stop shop where we had the contractors and the renovators and accountants and the lawyers and everything that you needed to be successful in real estate investing. Yeah. Correct. 4 years goes by. I eventually now quit TD Bank. So now this is around 2014. I'm like, okay, hold on a second now. I like the fact that I'm actually helping investors get into real estate investing. I also like the fact that I'm also helping tenants become home owners and own these properties down the road. However, I got to start keeping some of these properties. So then I now revisited the BRRRR strategy.
Really quickly, why did you come to that realization that You needed to keep some of these properties.
because
Like what happened? Like what?
because rent to own is a long term flip.
Yes.
And so now I'm losing these properties every 3 years. And so I got to keep on replenishing my investment portfolio. And the other thing as well too is you're missing out on that hockey stick curve because you don't know when that market is going to take off. So I'm like, okay, cool. Rental is not a bad strategy. BRRRR is not a bad strategy. I'm like, you got to find a strategy that suits your lifestyle. So now I'm like, okay, I learned how rent to own works for 4 years. Let me go back into the BRRRR strategy because now I've learned now how to screen tenants, more about the real estate investing game, and let me get my investors that I've been teaching the rent to own strategy how this whole BRRRR strategy works. Now we're starting to open up our mindset and our portfolio and the type of investments that we're going to buy, not by just pigeonholing ourselves in just any particular strategy.
Yeah, like I like the lease to own. Because you're putting in a tenant. It's a feel good strategy, right? Like you mentioned it, you're giving the opportunities for tenants to own a home.
Yep.
That generally speaking, it'd be a lot tougher for them to get into the market.
Yep.
But I think one of the biggest negatives of a lease to own is that it has that predetermined exit strategy. It's a positive and a negative. Let me rephrase
There's
that.
pros,
right?
there's pros,
There's pros and cons. Like to
Listen,
everything.
there's pros and cons to any investing
100%.
strategy as well too. And the other thing as well too, I also want to give a shout out to Rockstar Real Estate, Tom and Nick Carranza.
Oh, amazing!
Because
I had them on the podcast too.
Learned a lot from them, and,
Yeah.
and they really allow me to be who I am today.
Right. Yeah.
So
Big shout out to those guys.
Yeah.
Just
So I
great
found those guys. I found those guys back in 2009. Those guys are monsters in the game. They really
They've been
are.
doing it for a long time.
Yeah. So
And also, the brain will always find what you're looking for, right? When you wanted education, you want to surround yourself with the right people. It's why the Tom and the Nick start coming into your life, right? I mean, they're just
Yeah,
great people.
Exactly. And the other thing as well, too, because I want to touch on something that you were talking about a little bit earlier, is just being comfortable with who you are. And I think that's so important because when I was going down the path of doing what I was doing, getting into the podcast, listen, public speaking, man, I used to get nervous all the time.
I get it.
You know what I mean? Even doing the podcast, get nervous. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to let people know that, hey, look, this is who I am. I'm okay with it. I'm learning. I'm getting better. I might be shaking a little bit, but it's okay to be that way because you continue to, the more you continue to do what you do or what you love, you will get better at it. I mean, there's many times I would come home after an event. I'm like, dog, I am never doing this again. I hate doing this public speaking, but you know what? It's allowed me to do what I am today.
Yep.
It really has it, and I'm really glad that I kept pushing through, because I think God puts your talents deep down where you actually have to dig deep.
Interesting.
I really believe so. I think those are where your real true talents are.
And like
you have to chisel it out.
Right. I like what you said there. You have to chisel it out because if it was right at the surface, it's probably not that valuable to other people, if that makes sense. Like,
Right.
I want to make sure I'm articulating myself well there, meaning that, like, look, your income is always in direct proportion, and this is Jim Rohn and Anthony Robbins, right? Like in direct proportion of the value that you bring to the marketplace.
Yeah.
If you want a higher income, you got to bring more value to the marketplace. To find what that value is, it's probably digging. It's really deep.
Yeah.
It's really, really deep. It's funny what you said about public speaking and nervousness and all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. What I found best is to put it out to the world as quickly as possible. That's kind of what worked
Right.
for me.
Yeah.
I told people, like, maybe episode 3 or 4, I don't have the college degree. I don't have an MBA.
Yeah.
My hands, I was born with sweaty hands.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I love fist bumping still till this
yeah,
day.
yeah.
Because I always have sweaty hands. I grew up, like, just as a kid, sweaty hands. I sometimes have a lazy eye. I sometimes stutter. And once I put that out to everyone,
Mm-hmm.
you don't really got much on me now.
Right. Because you're now exposing yourself. And listen, and everybody has fears. Everybody wants to be accepted. People have fears of rejection. We all have it. You know how I know this? Because we're human.
We put our pants on one leg at a time, man.
So
Breathe
I
the same
understand.
friggin' air.
I understand a lot of the fears
Yeah.
that people have. I have those same fears. You know, and
100%.
so the best way to deal with it is to hit it head on.
Now,
That's it. Now, one of the best advice I ever got was from somebody a couple years ago. I went and did a talk at the Right Club. And a couple days went
Sarah
by.
Larby.
Sarah Larby.
Big shout out to
and-
Sarah
yeah,
Larby.
Yeah. We're good
good,
friends.
good friends of the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, she's doing some great things. And this investor calls me up, or no, reached out to me on Instagram. Said, hey, look, you know what? I wouldn't mind just maybe having a conversation with you. And yeah, absolutely, let's do it. So we spent about an hour on the phone, and I was just really kind of just sharing everything with. I love to help people, give them as much as I possibly can. She's like, Gary, you know what? Thank you so much. Like, you know, I don't even know how I can repay you or what I can give back to you. I'm like, don't worry about it. It's all good, man. Just go and use that information and do something good with it, you know? And she goes, what do you got going on this weekend? And I was like, you know what, man? I am super nervous. I've got to do an introduction to Les Brown.
Ooh.
So I'm also owner of a brokerage called Our Neighborhood Realty.
Okay.
Okay. And so we had brought Les Brown up to do a talk to our realtors and any other realtors that wanted to come and listen to him talk. And I go, man, I am super nervous. I got to introduce this guy. And she goes, oh my God, I can help you. I go, how? She goes, the chemicals released in your body when you are nervous or excited is exactly the same thing. So just say that you're excited. And I'm like, you just repaid me. Like, you just gave me more value than I've given you, you know? And so now
Just
I'm like,
a little switch,
I
right?
get it.
Yeah.
I get it. And like, I could never understand, why could somebody go on stage in front of 1,000 people and say, I am excited? That doesn't make any sense to me. I get it now. I get it now. So now you get up there because that same reaction that you're getting, that same feeling, that heart pounding, because you just want to do good.
So true.
And so now whenever I'm coming in to do, you know, today, I'm like, I am so excited to be here and to sit down and have a conversation with Jazz.
It's funny. Look, I mean, you know, I told you this is episode 179 or something. You said to me, yes? What 178? Okay.
Yeah.
178 podcasts I've hosted.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, I don't know, in the last 12 rolling months, I've probably been on 132 other people's webinars, podcasts, events, whatever it is.
Right.
Every single time, including today, I get this little feeling in my stomach. And it's kind of like butterflies. And I remind myself every single time, just make them fly straight. Make them fly straight. But I've also said to my team, I was like, guys, be aware. The day that goes away, I'm done with all this because I'm not growing.
Right.
It's not exciting for me
That's what you
anymore.
want. You want
I
that excitement.
want this, like, because then it just becomes boring. And I kind of went through that a few times in my life, so I know that feeling. Like, where, you know, I sold newspapers, Gary. I went to shoe sales.
Yeah.
I was in the banking industry with you were with the green guys. I was with the red guys for a bit, for 3 years, and then I was in car sales for 3 years, and shoe sales and newspaper, same things, 3 years each.
Yeah.
And every single time I left those places, it was the exact same feeling. I was bored.
Right.
It wasn't a challenge anymore for me. Every single time. And I almost felt it in real estate. I've been doing this for now coming up to 17 years. I almost felt it about a year ago. But then something just happened because I started to feel it. Yas came into my life. Luke came into my life where he wanted more training. And because now I could give back, it made me feel excited again. It gave me a new challenge again, right? So to your point about that same chemical between excited feeling and nervous feeling, oh man, does that ever resonate with me, man? I really, really get that. I want to quickly go back to investors.
Sure.
So I kind of know why you said real estate. What do you see, man? Like, what do you see? What stops people from investing into real estate? I say, Gary, that real estate investing is a vehicle. You mentioned it earlier as well.
Yep.
I think it's by far, and this is not because I'm a real estate broker. I don't care who you do it with. Do it with Gary, do it with me, do it with your cousin Charlie. It doesn't matter. That it's one of the easiest investments to get into because people will lend you money.
Yep.
Okay. And you don't need the 100 doors and the 5,000 doors, man. If you can just get one, it will change the course of your life. It's quite safe.
Yep.
It's a quite safe, like an investment.
Yep.
I don't think it's the best investment. I think the best investment in like that you could ever make is the investment in yourself.
Yep.
We talked about this, like, for the first 25 minutes of the podcast, 30
Yep.
minutes. But why do some people get stuck and they don't see that the same thing that you and I do when it comes to investing in real estate, because you deal with a lot of investors. You take the calls, you sit down with them one on one.
Yep.
You've helped a lot of them through it, and I'm sure some of them just you weren't able to.
Yeah, there's a couple different things. So I'll touch on maybe two of them for sure. Number one is fear of the unknown, right? They don't know where things might end up, and they're also sometimes using information based on the past where the market went down and they heard about somebody else's story and it didn't go well for them. So it's fear. The other one is lack of education, right? And the education meaning that they don't understand how the financial system works. They don't understand how money works. And so let's dig a little deeper into
Yes.
that, because I think this is really important, is that the schools have failed a lot of the kids in regards to how do you leave high school and not know how to read a credit report? That doesn't make any sense to me. How do you not know the difference between simple and compound interest? How do you not know how to use a credit card effectively, right? But yet, as soon as you go to university or college, what do they give you right there as soon as you enter that door? A credit card. So now they've set you up. You don't even know how to use this thing properly, okay? The other thing as well, too, is, they don't teach financial history. So let's go back. Let's just do a little bit of history, 'cause I think this is really important. And so after, you had the Great Depression. Then after the Great Depression, that caused a lot of turmoil within the U.S. there. Then you get into the Bretton Woods. So now World War II ends. The U.S. owns 2/3 of all the gold. So now you have Bretton Woods, 44 countries, I think it is, or 46, something like that. Come to Bretton Woods. They peg their dollar to the U.S. dollar. The U.S. dollar pegs it to gold. Okay? This happens now up until 1971. Richard Nixon comes out, says we are unpegging gold. People don't understand what happened then, but that is when cash became trash. Just that simple concept of understanding, hold on a second, they can now print to infinity. So if you can understand that, well, then now you got to say, well, where do I put my money? So that's one of the safest places that I figured out how to do was put it into real estate. Doesn't mean I love real estate. It just means that it's a good vehicle to hedge against inflation, to hedge against the printing of money. Just that simple concept alone will allow people to understand where should you put your money. See, I don't love real estate. People think that I love it.
Yeah.
I do it because I think it's a great vehicle.
so-
You don't have to love it, right?
No, I mean, I do it same reason. Like, I don't care for the architecture of a home or like any of that kind of stuff. I'm not passionate about the counters and the flooring. I care like nothing about that. But because I just never grew up around it. It just never made for me, it's the vehicle. The fact that somebody else is going to give me the money and then somebody else is going to pay that down. That's what like blew my mind once I learned it. I was like, someone else is going to help me pay for this property. I just got to come up with the down payment. And even the down payment, if I really want, I could raise it with 7 people or 4 people. If it's $100,000, you can raise that with 10 people, and all you need is $10,000 each, and then the bank's going to give me like that. Basic understanding is what made me love real estate.
Right.
But you spoke about you mentioned going back to like what happened with the printing of cash.
Yeah.
That brings us to today.
Right.
Gonna somewhat put you kind of on the spot. I know you left the crystal ball at home, but if you can kind of just tap into what you're thinking is gonna happen to the market, really Greater Toronto area, that's where most of my viewers and listeners are. What do you think's gonna happen with the market? Like with what's going on with how much money has been printed in recent time? I mean, States as well as here in Canada, we've printed a lot of money. Actually, like the most money we've ever printed
I
ever.
think they said 40% of the money was printed in the last year.
Yes.
Compared to the last 250 years. So just let that sink in. That's a huge number. So then what's going to happen? Inflation. Inflation has to take off, right? And so where's interest rates right now? They're really low.
Yep.
Interest rates should be a lot higher, but why are they not? Because to me, it feels like their hands are tied.
Yep.
I really feel that their hands are tied. And if they raise the interest rates too much, they're going to destroy the economy. Not only that, look at how much debt the government has. So if you kind of go back and take a look at history, anytime you've had high private debt and high sovereign debt, which is back in World War II type time, they kept interest rates very low. But now you go into the 70s, 80s, and you have high private debt but low sovereign debt. Well, then they were able to jack the rates up. Now where are we right now? We have high private debt and high sovereign debt, so interest rates are low. Now, are they going to move it up a bit? I think so.
Yeah.
But I don't think that they can continue to go too high, because once there's just a little whiff of a downturn, they're going to pump even more money into it,
100%.
and they're going to lower their interest rates even lower. Right, so they're running out of moves. They're pitting themselves into this corner, and if you understand what's happening, you can see how they're pinning themselves in the corner. It's like watching a boxing match, and you see this guy getting tired, and he's only got a couple moves left.
And I'm very curious and interested, obviously, because it's the business I'm in and the industry
Yeah.
I'm in, is to see what some of their next moves are going to be, because inflation is real.
It's no joke.
It's no
Yeah.
joke. I mean,
Yeah, and here's what I think is happening as well too, and I think it's hard for people to understand or really comprehend this, but you're witnessing and watching the death of a fiat currency. This is what's happening. A fiat currency, there are no fiat currencies that last. They all die. They all go to zero. And so I believe that they're going to have to usher in some form of new currency, which is where now you're talking about Bitcoin. But is it Bitcoin? Is it which is decentralized, or is there going to be a government cryptocurrency that's centralized, right?
Right.
Where they can now manipulate that as well too.
yeah, I mean, my gut feeling around that tells me that the latter is going to happen, right? Because the government's not going to allow the
They're not gonna want to.
decentralization of this. And what they're watching right now, they don't have their hands in it. They don't have their hands in it. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens in the next couple of years. I know you're going to be watching it very, very closely. Do me a favor, leave my viewers and listeners with one or two tips, man. You gave a lot of value today. I really appreciate that. But one or two tips around either real estate, mindset, the mic is yours, man.
Whew, man, there's lots of good tips I can give you. Here's one. Here's one that's really good. Let the future be the strongest pull in your life, not the past. Right? Meaning, don't dwell on what has happened before. Those are things that you can learn from, but don't live there, because that is what causes depression. Make the future be the pull, because then you can create and design and paint that picture of hope, of anything that you want. But also be careful, because if you live too much in the future, that can also create anxiety. So you just have to be very careful. So it's just life is this balancing act. So just also too enjoy each day. One of the things that I do when I wake up and I go into the office, or I'm sitting down with my team, someone say, "Hey, how's your day going?" I woke up. So that's a good start.
That gratefulness.
That's a
right?
great start.
Yeah.
And so from there, it can only get better. Like, I still got a heartbeat. There's things that could be a lot worse in my life. And so I'm thankful for that. And so I start from gratitude and just enjoy it. Enjoy the ride. I remember there's this one, and I'm going to probably do a bad job with this here. But anyways, I'm going to kind of paraphrase it. But essentially, the quote is, and it's written by Unknown, is, "Man, at the end of my life, I want to slide into my grave with my body all torn and lathered up and say, 'Woo, what a hell of a ride.'" And that's what you want.
Love that. It's
That's
so
what you
true.
want.
It's so. It reminds me of Kobe, man. Kobe said the same thing. They're gonna carry me off this court.
Yeah.
And it's so true. I'm so thankful for you coming in person, man. Thankful for all the content you're putting out there. Especially in the time that we're going through, that we hopefully just went through the worst of it. We need more people like you who are spreading the virus that I like, which is positivity, and really just telling real stories. So thank you for that, Gary. I really want to tell you that in person, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
you,
Appreciate it.
buddy.
And I'll say one last thing as well,
Yeah.
too, just to kind of tie up what you said there, which I think is very, very important, is that, in life you can be proactive and reactive. And there's a lot of things now that are making people very reactive. And I see what's happening. I understand. But you don't have to be reactive to now start putting that type of content online. I get it. I understand it. It's very divisive right now. So these are some things that you cannot control. The reactive side of things, right? You're using the emotion. Stick to more of the proactive. Stick to more of what you can control, your inner circle. And then be positive. Put out positive content. Say something nice, proactive.
Open the door for somebody.
Yeah, and do something with your life. And then that will then also be a way of, inspiring other people around you to say, wow, look at what Gary's doing. Wow, look at what Jazz is doing. I want to do that as well, too.
He did it again on the podcast. He does it every single time on his pieces of content as well. I asked him for 1 or 2 tips. He went further, went 3, 4 deep. He's a man of just adding immense value. Make sure to go follow him on all his content. Where do they find you, man? Like, tell them right now. Where's the best place to go?
Yeah, listen, so you can find me on Instagram, Gary Hibbert. You can also find me on Facebook, same thing. I'm on LinkedIn. I got my own podcast as well, too, Real Talk with Gary on iTunes, Spotify. So
He
you can
ain't
find
hard
me.
to find.
Yeah,
he
you
is
can find
not
me.
hard to find. Go check him out, Gary. Thanks so much again,
listen,
buddy.
man,
I
it was great
appreciate
hanging
you,
out with
brother.
you.
I
I
really
really
do.
do.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
man.
Thank you.